So we can take it off for a minute while we wait. Comments being made on the platform last night by the Prime Minister, and many others, of course, spoke, but we will deal with those matters at another time. But I felt this was an urgent matter to bring to the attention of the public of Trinidad and Tobago. So I will deal with this matter mainly, and it has to do with the Prime Minister's words on the platform last night, talking about. Rowley said the government, and I'm quoting here from The Guardian, this was also carried and expressed, this identical quote, in the Newsday and The Guardian of today. Rowley said the government realized there were errors in the law and, quote, we have to run government ahead, and so I have instructed the leader of government business to recall Parliament next Wednesday. I've instructed the leader of government business to recall Parliament next Wednesday. Now, this has its genesis based on certain illegal actions taken by the government. On behalf of Mr. Balgobin Maraj, who is here, a pre-action protocol letter was issued to the Honourable Attorney General and the Honourable Minister of Finance dated 10th July 2023. First pre-action letter. And in this, we sought to send a pre-action letter with respect to a proposed claim, an interpretation claim, to determine whether legal notice number 206 of 2023 is unlawful, null and void, and of no legal effect. Then on the 12th, we discovered thereafter, our client, through his, we call him a legal luminary himself, through research done, we discovered that there was another legal notice likewise issued by the Minister of Finance on the 12th July 2023 to the Honourable Attorney General and to the Honourable Minister of Finance. Again, interpretation claim to determine whether legal notice 164 and 206 of 2023 are unlawful, null and void, and of no legal effect. Basically, both these pre-action letters concern government's illegal actions under the hand of the Minister of Finance, to issue these orders to say that they were exempting services, foreign services, from the application of the procurement legislation. So we have discovered that there were these two. We gave a deadline. I took control of the matter, and on the 12th of July, I took lead of the legal team. We issued that second letter. And on the 13th of July, the Express carried story, Kabla takes over the claim in this matter, together with the team of lawyers. That was the 13th. Last night, on the 14th, the Prime Minister comes to tell us that he has instructed the leader of government business to summon the Parliament, to recall the Parliament. This government has consistently acted illegally. We are parliamentarians and we are supposed to be lawmakers, not lawbreakers. The government has consistently been breaking the law, and this is another example of law breaking. This whole scenario, there are many examples I can give, but it's all relating to these elections and what is transpiring in this period. Began when they wrongly applied law to postpone the local government elections. We had to take it all the way to the Privy Council, and then they were forced to call the local government elections. Again, it is our view that they are breaking the law once again by saying that Camille Robinson-Regis is instructed to recall the Parliament. Under the Constitution, we have a separation of powers, and the three divisions of a government are the executive, which is the government, the Parliament, the legislature, and of course the judiciary. Likewise, a Prime Minister cannot summon the judiciary to call a case or to do anything in a case. In the same way, the Prime Minister cannot instruct that the leader of government business recalls the Parliament at a time when we are in a recess. These standing orders were made pursuant to Section 56(1) of our Constitution, and they were made in 2014 and amended in March 2014, June 2015. Standing orders of the House. It makes it very clear that from the first week of July to the first week of September, the Parliament is in what is called a fixed recess. Fixed. From the first week of July, to the first week of month of September, first week in the month of September. So the Parliament is now on recess. Coupled with that is the fact that we're in the middle of a local government election, and we've been summoned to Parliament. I don't know what it is the Prime Minister wants to come to bring to the Parliament. We have no idea. He says amendments to the procurement law. And of course, we know one is to try to clean up the mess that they made in having the Minister of Finance issue those two legal notices, one 206 of 2023, and the second one was, the first one 64 of 2023 and 206 of 2023. These two notices. So we caught them in a sense with their hands in the cookie jar. By these two legal notices, they were saying that the Minister of Finance will just exempt certain services for the use of foreign persons coming here, no application of the procurement law, and have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar. They now want to come to make the law different so they can put their hands deeper down inside of the cookie jar. Because that's what this was about. Nobody would have known, because of the diligence of MP Saddam Hussein and other lawyers, that we picked up on this matter, that they could not issue such an order without coming to Parliament. It was a fundamental change to what the whole purpose of the procurement law is about and should be about. So they come now to summon us on Wednesday. The standing orders say we are in fixed recess. And during a fixed recess, what is the process? Is it that you could never have a sitting of the Parliament? The answer is yes, you can. But again, you have to follow the law. This is the law made pursuant to the Constitution. This is the law as it stands for the practice and procedure of the Parliament. And this is the base parliamentary practice, which is the Bible from the mother of all parliaments, which tells us what happens during the recess. So if you want to summon the Parliament, a Prime Minister, I don't know if we should even tell them, because then they'll find out what they should have done if they really wanted to do this according to the law of the land. But it is this. You cannot instruct Camille to summon the Parliament. If Camille sends me a notice to come to Parliament, I am not going. She has no power to summon a sitting of the House of Representatives, nor does the Senate President have the power, the jurisdiction, to get the senators to attend. The process laid out according to law is very clear. There is only one person who can make that decision to summon parliamentarians back to Parliament during a fixed recess. And this is under Standing Order 13 of the House, Extraordinary Sittings. Hear what it says. If at any time, when the House stands adjourned pursuant to its own order, or the Speaker is satisfied that there is urgent necessity for the House to meet upon a day earlier than the day to which the House stands adjourned, he may, subject to the provisions of paragraph 2 of the Standing Order, direct the clerk to summon a meeting of the House for such time on such day, whether Friday or otherwise, as the Speaker may determine. Every direction under paragraph 1 shall be in writing and shall be signed by the Speaker and shall bear the date upon which it is given to the clerk and shall specify the business to be transacted at the meeting to which it relates. Immediately thereafter, an order paper is issued by the clerk. So the Prime Minister cannot instruct Camille to recall the Parliament to sit there again, acted illegally. Secondly, they do this in the front of these matters, the pre-action letters I mentioned to you. We gave them a deadline of today's date, Monday, 4 p.m. They are now struggling to get to Parliament. They have until 4 p.m. today to answer their answers to go to Parliament to override what is to be the court process. It is only the court can nullify or uphold those two notices that I mentioned. So we see again this high-handed dictatorial approach a breach of the separation of powers and what the Prime Minister is instructing Ms. Robinson Rees to do by summoning us on Wednesday. We don't know what else is in that. If it's merely to deal with exemptions, further exemptions. Remember the history of this procurement law. After it was passed by my government, we went out of office and they came to amend it on several occasions to totally gut out and water down. And therefore, what we expect to happen again when they come back is that they will further water down the procurement law because they are totally against transparency and accountability in government affairs. That is how this government has been operated in this very high-handed manner. And you know, we wonder if all of this is to help fund the election campaign, that nobody knows who will be paid, how many persons will be paid, the amounts they will be paid. And this is to pay contractors, and will there be bribes to contractors and in terms of contracts given, exempting their services from procurement legislation. And then the kickbacks that come from that go into fund managing house. Up to now, no one can explain to me or to any right-thinking, rational person in this country how it is that you're building a $100 million Balizé house and you're building that by raffling 2 cars. How much raffle tickets you sold to get money to build a $100 million Balizé house? So is this all part of that whole conspiracy to fund this election campaign as well as to fund the construction of Balizé house? I don't think any rational person will believe that you raffle up 2 B-13s or whatever they were, 2 cars, and you were able. And then tell us, who were the contractors who bought car loads of raffle tickets? Who bought those tickets? Collecting by the box loads. Tell us who were those persons. Tell us what contracts they were given and are being given in what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. I will ask Senator Mark to join us, and then we can take your questions at the end. Senator Mark, as a former speaker. This one. Which one? All? There you go.
You all ready?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition and Political Leader of the United National Congress. Good morning to members of the media. I just want to reinforce and reiterate some of the key points emphasized by the Honorable Leader of our party. Now, members of the media, it is absolutely clear that the government once again has shown utter disrespect and contempt not only to the Parliament of our Republic, but as the Honorable Leader indicated, the principle of the separation of powers. We have the separation of powers clearly enunciated, and it is in the very structure of our Constitution. The Prime Minister is not the head of the legislature or the Parliament. It is the Speaker. So the Prime Minister, therefore, cannot arrogate unto himself that power to summon our Parliament and through the Parliament, members of Parliament. He has no such authority. It was Louis the 14th of France, Louis the 14th of France, who sought to indicate to the French people back in the 19th century that he was the state and the state was he, meaning that the 3 arms or organs of the state, as was enunciated by the Honorable Leader, the legislature, the judiciary, as well as the executive, he embodied all 3. And Mr. Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley is of the same view that he embodies all 3 arms of the state. Now, it is clear, if you are going to summon Parliament, there is a procedure, that was agreed to, that is now statutory law in Trinidad and Tobago. And you have to follow those procedures in order to have a legal, properly constituted sitting of the House of Representatives. The Prime Minister has violated, he has breached those procedures, and as the Honorable Leader has said, it is unlawful, it is illegal, and therefore Camille Robinson Regis has no authority to recall Parliament. The only person who can do so under our standing orders, consistent with the separation of powers, is the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives. It has happened in the past, where, for instance, there were extraordinary sittings. I recall two instances back in 2014 when the Parliament was adjourned on the 4th of August and it was reconvened on the 11th of August. That was during the period when we were in fixed recess. The Parliament agreed because there was no dissenting voices, and we came back on the 11th of August to deal with government business.
A motion was put for the House to be adjourned for that date. And there was no objection and no dissenting voice. So the House, of its own accord, resolved that we would come back into that date in August.
That is absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Dr. Munilal, leader of government business, moved a motion to that effect on the 4th of August, and the House unanimously agreed to resume action and activities on the 11th of August. And then when we had an error in the Tobago House of Assembly legislation, the same procedure was executed by the government in order to bring the Parliament out to sit on a Saturday. I recall, as a member of the Senate, we sat on a Saturday in the month of, I think was sometime in August, if I'm not mistaken, where we debated this particular measure. So the short point I am making is simply this: there is a procedure set out in our standing orders, which is a statutory law that must be followed by the Speaker if there is need for an extraordinary sitting or an urgent sitting of the House of Representatives. The government has a duty to convince the Speaker of the rationale for an urgent or extraordinary sitting. And if the Speaker is convinced of their arguments, then, as the Honorable Leader has read out, she would inform the clerk in writing of that urgency, sign it, and then the clerk will write to members of the House of Representatives, inviting them in accordance with that decision to sit on the particular matter that they are coming to deal with. So I just wanted to reiterate these points raised by the Honorable Leader, and I will pause at this time, Honorable Leader.
Thank you very much, Senator Mark. And let us remember they should have no difficulty in they should have no difficulty. I was saying they should have no difficulty in convincing the Speaker. But you have to act according to law. So any meeting summoned on the instructions of Camille Robinson Regis, again, is in breach of the separation of powers, in breach of the law, in breach of our standing orders. Now there's another troubling aspect of this whole issue of those two legal notices made without parliamentary approval, and it has to do with the fact when we discovered that the second exemption that they had done was with respect to the judiciary. Nobody knew of that. Came like a thief in the night. We don't know what they spend the money on, how they spend the money for the judiciary, as we don't know for this CARICOM how much they spent, what it was spent on, and who were the contractors who supplied goods and services. This exemption for the judiciary concerns the judiciary, comes at a time when recent events have reached a disconcerting and concerning close relationship between the government and close relatives of members of the judiciary. We've seen recently 2 judges had to recuse themselves because of close relationships. In one case, the husband of one judge, in another, the brother of that other judge. So it's very concerning that you're doing exemptions, secretly doing exemptions, contrary to law, with respect to releasing monies for the judiciary. That was what the second legal notice was about. So we strongly object to this high-handed dictatorial behavior of the Prime Minister. As I said, they should have no difficulty, I think, in convincing the Speaker. We all know the Speaker is their Speaker, and they should have no difficulty in convincing her. But if you have to do something, you do it in the proper way. And therefore, this convening on Wednesday is really, as I say, in breach of our standing orders, in breach of the law, in breach of the separation of powers. I open for questions. Jay, would you like to add anything? Thank you.
Honorable Leader, I mean, the Prime Minister made that on a public platform, a political platform. And based on what you were saying there, if he goes the way you are saying it's supposed to be done, would you all be attending the Wednesday sitting if he convinces the Speaker and goes that way?
We will cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And we will have to have sight of whatever it is they're planning to bring us. It is today's Friday. You want to come to Parliament on Wednesday, you're telling us. We have no idea what it is you're coming. Because he didn't just speak about this particular aspect. It seems to me he's talking about other kinds of amendments, which can only, in all respect, will you seek further to further gut out and weaken the procurement law as it stands, having done so on several occasions before. So we'll cross that bridge on that day when it comes to us.
Would the opposition be considering you, and you said you don't have sight of whatever it is that they are coming with, and given the level of distrust that you will have towards these types of things, are you possibly formulating at this point in time possible counter proposals and counter legislation amendments to whatever they will bring?
Well, you're giving me a tabula rasa, you give me a blank slate and ask me to make counter proposals. I mean, this is what the government does so many times. They've done it without prior notice. If we had to sit on Wednesday, we would have had to be given, at least 3 days notice, 3 days, so you could come up with counter proposals or whatever it may be. But from what he said there, it seems to me they want to further weaken this law so they could take their hands deeper down into the cookie jar. That's what this is about. It's a thief. It's to pay bribes because they have a history of doing that. You remember, Minister, they had to pay bribe money to a woman, hush money, not to proceed with a certain matter when clearly a minister was implicated. He was then a certain minister. We've seen on numerous occasions this government, as you use the words correctly, we cannot trust anything they tell us. We cannot trust anything they say. We do not believe anything that they say.
Given that these amendments are going to come to the House, obviously they
And
will,
the Senate.
they will, and the Senate. Now coming to that, thank you. Is it that what would be the consideration at this point? Would there be a particular message you want to send to the independents in this particular, if this particular matter comes in? The government, this may be a simple majority matter that the government may.
Well, he's already signaled, in his view,
Yeah.
he has already said last night that they will use the majority that you have given us to pass it with their majority.
Yeah.
So they don't care about independence, they don't care about anybody else, they don't care about John Public, they don't care about anybody else. They will use the majority they have in the parliament to just rush it through, push it through in whatever form or format it may be. So what message can I send the independents? And the message will be that continue being as independent as you always seem to be.
Given that it doesn't require any special majority.
We don't know. They are saying that. He is saying we'll use a majority. We don't know how many times have they come and voted on laws in the parliament, removed the need for a special majority, and it turns out to be bad law. As I said, we don't believe a word they say, and we'll only see it when we believe it. But the Prime Minister has already indicated that they will use their majority. In other words, meaning that it will only require a simple majority. How do we know that? How many pieces of law they've removed the special majority clause from? watered it down and then end up in the courthouse. Oh God, well, talk about courthouse now. The Prime Minister seems obsessed with matters going to court, but in a democracy, if we are not governed by the rule of law, and the Supreme Court is a guardian of our Constitution and the guardian of the rule of law, the Supreme Court, where will we go? Will we be governed by the law of the jungle, which is to say, the fittest, only the fittest will survive? You kill off everybody, lick down everybody else. No, we have to be governed by the rule of law. And last time again, the Prime Minister is talking, I don't know, I know his legal advisor to the cabinet is a man who was prepared to lie on oath and get thrown out of a court case in Miami, still there sitting and is giving very bad advice. Because I saw the Minister of Finance said he got the advice of the Attorney General to do these orders, these legal notices, these orders that I mentioned. And the Prime Minister said us last night about, we can't pay 4%, we can't pay more than 4%, and you'll have to take it. And you lose in the first court, and you lose in the second court. I know you're going up by the Englishman for them to tell you something different. But that is the system of justice that we have. And until that
What does he mean by that in your?
well, it will certainly stop a lot of people from paying bribes and kickbacks on defense. And in that way, if a government wants to proceed in that way, it will certainly grind them to a halt. They don't want transparency, do not want it. They took 8 years to put this piece of legislation to proclaim it. 8 years now, you're coming to complain about problems with it. Problems in the law. Who brought that law? We passed it, then you came and you amend and amend and amend, and you're coming to amend again. I wouldn't be surprised if they come on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday, whichever day they legally can come, and come now to take out even more, to water it down further. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And or to give an amnesty. I would not be surprised if they're coming to say, look, take a year, take 6 months, get yourself in order, get your house in order. They've done it with other pieces of legislation. They say, okay, hold on. All right, you don't have to bother with this thing right now, Take us 6 months. And during an election time, where you will not have that oversight, you will not have that accountability and transparency, that for government to spend money as they wish, give all the contracts to their big friends and financiers. Is that what it is? That is what they have in mind as we go forward. Again, we are very distrustful, as you say, Clint. We do not trust a word they say.
How would this particular sitting, how will this affect the current legal matters that are in train right now? Does that short circuit them in any way?
Well, if I don't get a reply from them by 4 p.m. today, we are in the courthouse tomorrow morning. We will file our matter. We gave them until 4 p.m. today. They have not answered the pre-action letters. Tomorrow morning we are in court. And look, as the court will tell us if these orders are good, bad, or indifferent,
Isn't the deadline Monday? The 17th? Did I read it was the 17th? Just clarify.
Sorry, Monday the 17th.
So you're being
By what you didn't actually, yes, we can't go to court tomorrow anyhow.
Right.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. Yes,
Right.
Monday 17th. I don't know why I think it's Monday. The days are going fast.
Right.
Monday the 17th is the deadline given, and definitely we do not get a reply, we shall proceed. As our client is here, our client is here. Yes, as our client was instructed.
The 2-month issue that the Prime Minister raises,
The
time
what?
frame,
Mhm.
was that something discussed in the initial,
I'm sorry, can you?
the 2-month period that the Prime Minister keeps raising that as an issue? Was that something discussed when the bill was originally brought?
I really listened to his entire speech, so you will want to tell me what you're talking about, please.
If
I
can-
really could not sit down for an hour and a half and listen to that.
Yeah, if I can clarify further, the question that you have asked would not have been in the actual parent legislation. Those would have been what is called the accompanying regulations that were debated ultimately and passed by the Parliament, and there were several um, appendices to the actual legislation. Because as you know, the legislation dealt with the broad principles and provisions that would govern this particular piece of legislation. But the details concerning implementation and operationalization of the legislation have to take the form of regulations. So the question you are asking is that if somebody makes a bid for a particular, let's say, service, or to provide a particular good or service, there is a 2-month window in which all qualified contractors or suppliers would have to be given to submit their particular, let's say,
Documents.
documents, I should say. And then there's an evaluation committee that sits along with an advisory committee to determine whether this particular supplier or contractor would in fact be awarded. So when Imbert or the Prime Minister speaks to the issue of the 2-month period, those are steps that must be taken consistent with the regulations that were properly and duly approved by the both houses of Parliament. So that is where the 2-month period came into being.
He made the argument that, 50 years of CARICOM, some would say they had enough time to put the process through. Is that an argument that you all feel is legitimate? 2 months is enough time. There isn't circumstances where there is a need to remove that 2-month period of going through that vetting process.
There are matters that are really matters of grave urgency. If, as we sit here and stand here today, the whole country is flooded, which has been happening very often, you will see that as something that is definitely an urgent matter, an extraordinary matter. That would clearly be one that we could find ways to deal with it, to find monies for payments and so on. But when you have a CARICOM 50 years thing, man, 50 years you're waiting for 50 years, I mean, how can that be an urgent, extraordinary matter? How can that ever be urgent and extraordinary? And then the troubling thing was also that the order gave it for a 3-month period. So what we have in 3 months at CARICOM? Obviously it's for other things. We have no objection to foreigners coming or foreign dignitaries visiting. We are very proud and happy to welcome people here. But you have to still act within the law, according to the law. So yes, that is the answer to your question. You didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, it's 50 years, let's have a great big party in Trinidad and Tobago.
If I might just on a brief other issue that is currently in the public domain. I know we've mentioned a lot about issues with migrants and stuff in recent times. What's your view on the hint given by the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister about the possibility, it's still not a firm thing, but a possibility of migrant children and being integrated into primary schools?
It's a brilliant idea, policy. In principle, I have called for it repeatedly, that children should not be treated as outlaws, that they should be given opportunities to attend school. But can I tell you something, Clint? I have no hope of seeing this government implement that in time for schools in September. Already so much is happening in our schools where they can't even deal with those issues. And therefore, I can't see how they're going to put things in place to implement. They have a great implementation deficit. A lot of talk, but no action. A lot of talk, but no action. The implementation deficit is a very, very huge gap in what they're talking the talk, but they don't walk the walk. So I'm happy, as I say, for it to happen, but again, I'll wait till I see it in process.
I'm not wanting to give them any advice, but at the same time, if this was something, and these people have been here for a long time in various capacities, but if there was a serious attempt to get this off the ground, how long would one need to prepare in order to be doing this?
We would get it done if it were my government. We would get it done in time for September. I recall when we abolished the common entrance exam, We were in the month of July, I believe it was, July, August, July, and we were having a meeting right here in my constituency in a rundown ramshackle school, which when I came in, we started to build, and this government never completed it. Anyway, we were having that meeting, and Mr. Pandit turned to me, I was Minister of Education. Minister, can we give every person a place in a secondary school? And that was the famous day when not a child was left behind. So from then, we had to find spaces, we had to build those schools within a few months to ensure that those children, if it were my government, I could give you that assurance, we would have got it done. We could get it done. But the implementation deficit on the part of this government, as I say, is a very huge gap.
But in terms of migrants, it's not just a matter of getting the children into school. These children would be speaking another language. We have teachers we have lots of schools that are missing multiple English-speaking teachers for regular subjects. So you're talking about not just that, you're talking about needing teachers who speak their language.
A language deficit.
It's a big issue in terms of how you integrate that into our schools at this point.
All right, so that's a whole other issue, a very important one, however, where it is again, there's so many vacancies for teachers per se in the schools. That's why I'm saying the implementation is not an easy thing, and this government has that deficit with implementation. That same thing I mentioned to you when every child was given a space, we had to find teachers. We had to find teachers for 10,000 more children that year and thereafter. So it's something that will take a lot of effort and a lot of time, but it is not impossible. Talking about the language deficit there, I just saw on the news, I don't know, sometime recently, Barbados is now Guyana is now making Spanish compulsory in primary schools. In primary schools. You think we'll ever get there? Again, implementation on the part of this government. Okay, I don't know if there's anything else that is of burning importance. I mean, there's a lot of talk. We respond to adequately on the platforms when we next speak on those platforms. I want to thank you very much and have a very nice day. Thank you very much.